Some of the most often cited passages in the Bible are found in Jesus' Good Shepherd lectures, John 10, which are presented in Episode 6 of The Chosen Season 4. There's plenty to explore if you're studying The Chosen in your small group, youth ministry, or Bible study. The following questions and discussion guide are meant to assist you and your community in delving into the original biblical text and The Chosen Season 4's portrayal of these texts. Review the questions before watching The Chosen Season 4, Episode 6. As per usual, before beginning your discussion of Episode 6, I'd like to invite you to quickly review. What do we now know about Judas' character, abilities, and desires? Judas started stealing money from the disciples' purse in the previous episode. What made him decide what to do? Why did the disciples appoint Judas as treasurer rather than Matthew back in Season 3? What did Yusuf discover was being planned in the Sanhedrin in the last episode? Bible study and discussion questions to use before watching The Chosen Season 4 Episode 6. The majority of people in your group might be familiar with some of the most important passages from Jesus' Good Shepherd teachings, such as I came that they may have life and have it abundantly, but they might not have read the entire thing. It may be challenging for some viewers to follow Jesus' speech in Episode 6 due to the events that are taking place, so it may be beneficial to read and analyze the material in advance. Start the conversation by reading the passage that follows. Really, I tell you, that man is a thief and a robber if he enters the sheepfold by some other route instead of through the door. However, the one who comes in through the door is the sheep's shepherd. The gatekeeper opens for him. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out when the sheep hear his voice. Once he has shown them everything he has, he walks ahead of them, and the sheep follow him because they are familiar with his voice. They do not recognize the voice of strangers, so they will run away from a stranger rather than follow them. Jesus employed a figure of speech with them, but they were unable to comprehend his words. Truly, I say to you, I am the door of the sheep, declared Jesus to them once more. The people who preceded me were all criminals and thieves, yet the sheep ignored them. The door is me. Anyone who comes in through me will be rescued, able to come in and go out till he finds pasture. The sole goals of the thief are to steal, kill, and destroy. I came so that they could experience abundant life. The Good Shepherd is me. For the sake of the sheep, a good shepherd gives his life. When a hired man, not a shepherd, sees a wolf approaching, he leaves the sheep and runs away, only for the wolf to seize and disperse them. Being a hired man who has no concern for the sheep, he runs away. The Good Shepherd is me. My own knows me, and I know my own. In the same way that I know the Father and the Father knows me, and I give my life to save the sheep. Furthermore, I own sheep outside of this fold. They will hear my voice, so I must bring them too. Thus, there will only be one shepherd and flock. The Father loves me because I gave up my life so that I may pick it back up. It's not taken from me, but I voluntarily lay it down. I am able to put it down and pick it back up with authority. My Father has given me this task. John 10-118 ESV. Next, make note of, according to Season 4, Episode 3, these speeches occur immediately following Jesus' healing of the blind man and his expulsion from the synagogue for proclaiming confidence in Jesus in the Gospel of John. In the discourses, Jesus is compared to a sheepfold door and a shepherd. It is crucial to acknowledge that Jesus employs these metaphors in multiple contexts. It's not necessary for every comparison to make sense. Let's now talk about the following queries. Who do you think the thief, robber, or stranger is supposed to symbolize, given the context of the passage? Why do you think Jesus doesn't name the robber/thief directly? Why does he employ a parable or comparison that is difficult for his audience to understand? Jesus compares a thief, robber, or stranger with a good shepherd in the first sermon, verses 1-6. What distinguishes the objectives and actions of a shepherd from those of a robber, thief, or stranger? What does the meaning of these discrepancies mean metaphorically? What, unlike other religious leaders, is Jesus disclosing about himself? Jesus modifies the analogy in lines 7-10, referring to himself as the sheep's door. How does a door's function differ from a thief's or robber's? What does this metaphorical interpretation of these discrepancies mean? Jesus reframes the analogy in lines 11-18, comparing a shepherd to both a hired hand and a wolf. What do you believe the wolf and hired hand are meant to symbolize? In what ways do the commitment, character, and actions of a shepherd differ from those of a hired hand? What are the differences between a wolf's and a shepherd's objectives? What does the meaning of these discrepancies mean metaphorically? According to Jesus, he has sheep that are not part of the same fold. What person do you believe he is referring to in the original context? Jesus draws a comparison between his close bond with his sheep and his relationship with his Father. What does this indicate about the kind of partnership he envisions for us? Jesus is able to give his life and then take it up again because of the love of the Father. In what ways does Jesus' love affect us similarly? This chapter provides us with a wealth of information about Jesus. Which of these realizations, given your current situation, do you find most encouraging? Following the viewing of The Chosen Season 4, Episode 6, Questions for Bible Study and Discussion. Upon viewing an episode of The Chosen, I usually pose a few fundamental questions to individuals. Of the episode, what stood out to you? What most resonated with you? Were there any questions you had? Was something not clear to you? As usual, I encourage you to run with the conversation if it takes a wild turn and don't feel constrained by the questions that come next. On the other hand, you can pose the following queries if you require further structure. What reaction does Jesus' Good Shepherd speech elicit from the religious authorities? Did you find anything surprising in their response? In response to the religious leaders' demands that he explain whether or not he is the Christ, Jesus says, "I and the Father are one," John 10:30, to which they try to stone him and the disciples. What does Jesus mean by this, and why do you think he is saying it now? Why are the other disciples not interested in Judas' earlier suggestion in the episode to designate donation collectors in the villages they pass through in order to have the money necessary to concentrate on ministry? Why is Judas so irritated by their response? Because we know where Judas' character is going, it's simple to conclude that everything he does is wrong. However, what makes Judas' efforts worthwhile? Why do you suppose Jesus rejects the plan in the end? Why does Jesus not endeavor to increase the effectiveness of his disciples' ministry? Do you believe that the church need to be receptive to novel concepts that enhance community and ministry? Is it possible to have faith in God's providence and simultaneously be creative in problem solving? How should you react, in your opinion, if someone else rejects an innovative idea you've proposed? Jesus tells Judas to listen intently to his teaching on the Good Shepherd. What was Judas intended to learn from the sermon, in your opinion? Do you believe Judas understood this lesson? If not, what would be the reason? At the end of the episode, what do you suppose is going through Judas' mind? What is he finding difficult to comprehend? Have you ever faced comparable difficulties? What does it look like to resolve conflicts like this in a faithful and honest way? Review: The Chosen Season 4. There had never been a multi-season, long-form television program about the life of Jesus Christ before The Chosen. Of course, there have been a lot of films. The narrative of the New Testament has even been correctly portrayed in a few miniseries. There have been failed attempts at multi-season continuations. AD, The Bible Continues, Anyone, leading some to question if a successful TV show about Jesus can even be produced. Nevertheless, it's absolutely astonishing that this show, which was made wholly outside of Hollywood, has gained such widespread appeal. Perhaps, though, The Chosen's most recent offering, the eagerly awaited Season 4, will provide more insight into why something of this nature has never succeeded before. A historical play called The Chosen is based on the life of Jesus and the people who knew him. Amidst the oppressive Roman rule in first-century Palestine, the series offers a genuine glimpse into the revolutionary life and teachings of Jesus. The fourth season of The Chosen has everything that viewers have enjoyed about the first three. In many situations, the reasons why so many spectators stayed around were the interpersonal relationships between Jesus, Jonathan Rumi, 12 disciples, the developing tensions between the local religious leaders and the occupying Roman armies, and the visual representation of miracles performed on screen. The show isn't just a worldwide sensation. It keeps pointing remarkably back to its origin. Given that Dallas Jenkins, the show's creator, clearly intends to produce 7 seasons in all, and since Jesus' earthly ministry is said to have lasted only 3 years, the slow burn tempo leading up to the inevitable crucifixion is now beginning to gather up some real steam. The tension between the Jewish Pharisees and Roman forces like Quintus, Brandon Potter, and Gaius Kirk B.R. Waller is what sets Season 4 apart. It finally feels like it could blow at any second. The latest season of The Chosen starts off less of a faith-based program and more like a political historical drama, a la Rome, and that's definitely the purpose. Things felt simultaneously spiritual, political, and personal. The way the struggle is framed in Season 4 nearly gives the impression that the show would continue into Jesus' eventual crucifixion and resurrection narrative, perhaps even into the early years of the church as described in the book of Acts. The bond amongst the disciples, more especially the 12 whom Jesus had, chosen, is by far the greatest strength of this production. The long-term rivals Simon Peter, Shahar Isaac, and Matthew Paris Patel have been teasing an impending split for years. Every dispute has a natural boiling point at which it can either explode out of control or be subsided by external intervention. Jesus is that something, as always, and even though their anger with one another have been mostly justified, Matthew was about to get Simon put in jail after all. They are still in direct opposition to the lessons that their new itinerant rabbi is trying to impart. This topic is finally addressed in a compelling and limited fashion in Season 4, which serves as a reminder of the primary themes of the entire series. Naturally, this does not imply that the disciples are not dealing with other important problems. Watching these people stumble over one another while thinking over their teacher's challenging and occasionally perplexing words is one of the best aspects of The Chosen. The Sons of Thunder, brothers James, Abe Bueno-Jalad, and John, George H. Xanthus, are frequently the ones who start these arguments, and it seems like they haven't learned anything from Jesus because they are doing it again in this scene. A beat that may easily come across as monotonous or repetitive feels more in line with the biblical story, albeit in a novel and clearly distinctive sense. Ultimately, the Bible never presents the disciples as flawless individuals, and if anything, their flaws are highlighted here. The Chosen's past seasons aim to draw viewers in by delving into the complex personal lives of their central figures. At the beginning of the episode, Matthew was estranged from his family. A demon-possessed Mary Magdalene, Elizabeth Tabish, was living on the streets under a false identity and self-medicating. And of course, Simon Peter had gotten himself into a huge debt he was unable to pay back. The setting for Jesus' entry was intended to reflect the difficulties that a contemporary audience would face in their daily lives. Overall, the show has consistently performed admirably, and Season 4 only serves to reinforce this point by adding a layer of complexity to some of those personal struggles. The production, scene design, costumes, and cinematography of this show surpass the derogatory term faith-based that it is frequently associated with. The Chosen feels like a big-budget streaming series set in the 1st century AD because every expense has been taken, and this production value has only grown with time. Furthermore, Shahar Isaac has established himself as a powerful and multifaceted leading man who is still capable of surprising us, even though he may have had more to do in the 3 episodes that were reviewed last season. With his internal conflicts and fiery bravado, Simon Peter is arguably the most complex character in The Chosen. However, after the thrilling Season 3 final, Sustenance, Isaac shows us another side of the future apostle, letting us know that there is still a lot in store for Peter in the future. Fans could find it difficult to adjust to Reza Diako's portrayal of Philip this season following Yoshi Barriga's abrupt departure. Diako's portrayal of the character is, to put it mildly, aggressive. It lacks the presumably upbeat appeal of Barrigas's 2 seasons. For a moment, it was difficult to tell if he was Philip at all, but the show, probably sensing that reaction, makes sure to identify the new face almost instantly. The disciples' dramatic change in attitude may be partially attributed to the Season 4 plot, but it's not the only one. Diako's Philip doesn't even appear in the 1st episode, which gives viewers more time to get used to the switch. The details of Jesus' storyline for this season are unknown, but given that all of the promotional materials have hinted that Demetrios Troy's Lazarus will be prominently featured in Season 4, the season's title, Rise, is no accident. We can only assume that his resurrection story will be significant. Furthermore, the teasers emphasize Jesus' moniker as the Man of Sorrows, and the program doesn't even consider pulling any punches right away. Even when he's angrily confronting the religious authorities in the streets, Rooney's Jesus never stops being joyful when he appears on film. Even though we still have 1 or 2 seasons left till the series' conclusion, the climax still looms no matter what Jesus accomplishes. It goes without saying that bringing the Bible to life has certain difficulties. The very first episode of The Chosen explicitly says that it is not a one-for-one adaptation, although it does make some problematic artistic choices with the lives of Jesus and his followers. Despite being presented narratively as the strongest, these changes carry over into Season 4 and are by far the weakest aspect of the program. Although The Chosen excels at focusing on the connections amongst Jesus' motley crew of disciples, overemphasizing their personal lives also proves detrimental and takes attention away from the main story. These is best demonstrated in these group of episodes by following the life of one of the show's most exaggerated pupils, Thomas Joey Vahidi, especially in light of his romantic relationship with Rama, Yasmin al-Bastami. These scenes are frequently performed dramatically well and have the potential to be both enduring and humorous at times, but they detract from important and dramatic plot elements in the main story in an effort to give this subplot more weight. Here, however, the major impact from the season premiere is oddly sidestepped in favor of placing Jesus in a precarious situation as the show's makers grapple with the age-old question, what would Jesus do? Their responses are dubious. The Chosen might be better off eschewing romantic subplots entirely and concentrating instead on its strengths as a political and religious drama woven with intricate personal subplots, which this season's second episode nicely highlights. We don't know which disciples were married historically, apart from Simon Peter. The Chosen is, in some ways, a well-written Bible fan fiction that stumbles when it deviates too far. That's hardly news considering the long list of IP-driven productions, big and small, that have met similar ends in the past, but it becomes sense that many of the Christian audience would feel deceived, as the Bible is more than just an IP. Expanding on Mary Magdalene's background, the previously mentioned friction between Simon and Matthew, and even the miscarriage narrative from the previous season were all handled tastefully and within context, proving that not all creative license is negative. Given the overall number of episodes, the verdict on Season 4 is still out. But it's clear that The Chosen shines when it doesn't depend on soap opera extras to boost drama or fill in voids. Perhaps this is the reason why, unlike other historical characters, there has never been a successful television series centered on Jesus Christ. Perhaps most people can't bear the burden of bringing such a significant and potent story to the screen. Perhaps too much embellishment muddies the water in the tale of Christ, making it impossible for it to be properly converted into wine. Whatever the case, The Chosen Season 4 isn't entirely detracted by these artistic licenses. This show is still very much in its prime, which is another indication of how far faith-based entertainment has come. The first few episodes build upon each other and are strong enough to stand alone even when separated from the larger story. The cast is excellent as usual, and it's exciting to wonder whatever biblical story will appear next. With the show's remarkable endurance and committed creatives, Season 4 is off to a really solid start, and they appear to have some interesting stuff in store. Season 4 of The Chosen is a must-watch television series if you're in the mood for an epic historical drama about one of the most significant historical times.